I did not pick up any magic tricks, but he and Madison had tricks galore. And so I would walk in and they'd be like, Miss Anika, look. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, thanks.
Kristen Maldonado here, and we're diving into our favorite fandoms here at New York Comic Con. Stories of vampires have been told for generations, right?
Yes.
So how does this adaptation of Let the Right One In kind of make things a little fresh or a little bit different from what you've seen in the past?
That's such a good question.
First of all, it's a brilliant adaptation of Andrew Hinderaker from the original film into a series. That alone represents a challenge when you transform 2 hours into 10 and hopefully 100 more.
Yes.
And when I read the script and I saw this beautiful assortment of new characters and new subplots that made the whole thing richer, that's when I thought, I will watch this. I'm going to make it, but I will watch it too. Because you don't see many stories where a father has to do anything and everything that is in his power to keep his daughter safe and alive and well fed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a very interesting new twist into every vampire story that you've seen before, but also all the different elements that are playing now, the different characters. Everybody does what they do because of love, and this is a love story of what human beings can do for your loved ones.
Well, what made me want to adapt it is just that it's, to me, one of the most extraordinary films ever made, and particularly in the horror genre, and for me it is probably the most moving horror film ever made. And I've tried to pay tribute by simply reading the novel dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times, and same with the film, and again, because I really love them both. And then it gets to a point where that novel and that film are kind of imprinted in your DNA almost. And then I got to start to imagine what the story might be, and to let the novel and the film inspire me. And I think what can happen in a lot of adaptations is you try to be desperately faithful to the literal story points, the characters, the setting. But the truth is, this novel has the most beautiful, precise adaptation in the film. So for me, the question was, in a long form like television, how can the novel and the film, and really even the American adaptation that Matt Reeves directed, how can that inspire me to tell a story that's entirely its own thing?
One thing that I loved about the movie, and that I think that this show really tried to capture the spirit of as well, is approaching this genre as if it's absolutely real. This is an affliction. These are human beings, caught in these circumstances, and they almost approach it like as if it's something like the pandemic, COVID, something that happens that nobody really knows much about, and people sort of have to find out how to solve, So the element as well of finding a cure, I think, is unique.
I think that what makes them different is that the vampires are kids. And they're victims. They're not villains. They're not malicious monsters. They're people that are struggling, that are trying to stay alive, that don't understand why they're in the situation they're in.
All these other shows show that being a vampire is really cool, really fun, but not in this case. This show is definitely different because it explores more of the harsh reality and the toughness and the challenges of being a vampire, and how being a vampire affects others around you.
Different from typical vampire shows. Most are about like a romantic love and a connection between like the vampire and a girl that they meet, or the vampire and a boy that they meet. This one is very different because it's got that family kind of unconditional love placed in, and that's kind of where the love story is. And it's really about like loyalty versus morality. Like, I mean, obviously you're loyal to your family and to the people around you that you love, but are you so loyal to the point where you would give up your morals to save them? And so I love that it kind of asks those questions.
You're telling this story through the lens of like vampires, it's supernatural, but you're telling these very deep stories of addiction and family and kind of survival. And I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Well, I think it's a really interesting time to be looking at this through the lens of addiction. We're in the middle of another epidemic in our country, the first drug epidemic that came with empathy, which is really interesting. But I think it'll allow people to have a sense of connection to this, because I think that when we look at addicts, it's very easy to label them as monsters, right? But if we're the parent of that addict, is that a monster, or is that the child that we brought into the world? Is that the person we love? So there's always a different viewpoint and a different way to understand what is happening. So when you see these monsters in our series, and you know that they don't want to be monsters. They didn't go into the game aiming for that. Is there another viewpoint to look at people when they are in an uncontrollable situation?
For me, both the novel and the film resonate in so many ways, but one of the biggest ways is as a parable of addiction. There's an extraordinary moment in the film where the child vampire attacks someone, and then after it's over, she doubles over and cries. And it felt like, to me, watching somebody struggling with addiction, the sort of shame and sadness that follows. And so that idea of wanting to explore that theme in all of its manifestations in the series includes that there is a literal drug in our show that has people behaving suspiciously like vampires, which creates a really thrilling mystery for our characters to solve, but it also allows the show to explore what is it to be addicted to this highly destructive drug, and what does it do to not just the people on it, but to the city at large.
It's very grounded in reality and feels like a very relatable human dilemma. I think that's what initially, attracted me to the show and to the narrative that Andrew pitched, which was that it was sort of like a larger metaphor for battling addiction and what the people around, what the people who love the person who's struggling will do to make them feel better and to have them not hurt so much.
I'd love to hear about how this cast came together.
Oh, I mean, just basically the best people in the world auditioned and we cast them. I mean, this is where it gets wonderfully simple, where you write these characters, but they are words on a page, and then these extraordinary human beings and artists that are around me right now come in and kind of in an instant, that's the person. And I had a director that I worked with that once said, you're not really casting the show. The right roles will be found by the right actors, and that was certainly true in this case. So I know it sounds coy, but just the most amazing people came in and said, I am Eleanor, I am Mark, I am Zeke, I am Naomi, and it really has been just the most enormous privilege to work with each of them.
I think it's such a beautifully diverse cast. I think it's so easy to go the route of vampires are pale, so we'll just cast the same type of person, and you guys really have such a beautifully diverse cast. So kudos to that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's not the New York City that I've experienced. That's not the country that I've experienced. The New York City that I've experienced looks and sounds like our cast, and it's an honor to work with each of them, and I'm really proud that they do embody this city and this country that we live in.
You're looking very fly. I love your
Thank
suit.
you.
Now, I overheard you saying this is one of your first big projects. So can you tell me a little bit about what the audition process was like and what it felt like kind of joining this project, being on set every day, if you learned anything new and exciting?
The audition process, it maybe took about 2 months. The audition, I really thought that I could book it. I thought that the role was just like me. And when I got the call back, I was super excited because prior that I hadn't had many callbacks. and they obviously liked my callback tapes. So a couple days later, I got the chemistry read, and for the chemistry read, I actually learned a couple magic tricks, and I sewed pockets to my jacket, and I felt like that gave me the boost, and maybe one of the reasons that I booked it. And coming on the show has been really cool. Coming on the set with Madison, Anika, Damien, they're all really cool, wonderful actors, and learning from Anika has been really fun. She's really playful. She has great motherly instincts. So much so that she reminds me of my mother.
The first episode, it starts out really strong. You are literally on fire.
Yeah, yes.
like figuratively and literally on fire. Did you actually film that? What was that like?
Yeah, so I mean, I know this is probably not what everybody thinks is crazy about it, but that was real snow. We were walking in that barefoot all the way through there. So I grew up in Utah, but that was definitely cool. That was definitely a lot. And my stunt double was able to do the fire. That was crazy. Put all that gel on him, and it just went. I think the hardest part of that scene for me was the screaming, because after about 3 takes, my voice is gone, because I'm screaming as loud as I can. Obviously, you're on fire. So that was pretty difficult. I was glad that I was able to have a few days off after that before going back into film.
Yeah. And then going into filming, your character is, pretty raw.
Yeah.
What was that makeup and everything like, and how, how long did it take? Could you actually do anything besides chill in a bed with that on?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do much. If I sat back against the couch, it would start peeling off the makeup, and it would put stuff on the couch as well. So I was kind of immobile when I was in the makeup. I kind of just sat and waited for my scene, and yeah. But it was about 3 hours on, 2.5 hours on, and then maybe like hour and a half off. And then I would sit in it for maybe 6 hours, or maybe a little more. So my skin was pretty raw, for a lack of a better word. But that makeup, just to be able to have it in a scene, made the scene feel very powerful, because obviously being in the makeup is not the most comfortable thing, and the character in that situation is not comfortable in the slightest. So it did give me just a little bit to work off of, just to feel that around my body. Obviously it's not a burn in the pain, but it did help me kind of get into that character.
We're sort of seeing things a little bit through your eyes, where we don't really know what's happening either, and like your character kind of comes in and is like,
what the fuck is happening?
What has happened to my brother? Like, what's been going on? And it seems like, your character's going to really lead us on that journey of trying to solve this.
But it's true. I think she's like sort of the audience's eyes and ears for the story, and
Absolutely.
she really brings us in. Yeah,
so I would love to hear a little bit more about that, and about your character's journey throughout the season.
Well, my character starts out, but I mean, before we see her in a very different world and a very different life, and then has to make the decision in a matter of hours whether to completely upend her entire life to save her brother, who she thought was dead for 10 years. So we see her completely fall apart and then be rebuilt, and make a series of very morally ambiguous decisions that come at a cost.
We're introduced to you, to your family. Speaking to Ian, he was going on about how it was just incredible to work with you. And so I'd love to hear about the dynamic between the two of you, as a single mother and also as a homicide detective, if you could break it down for us.
Well, he is really the central point, the central heartbeat of my life, if you will. But I'm also a professional woman, and I have to make sure that I balance the space of what is happening on my job, what is happening in this city, and be able to also come home, put that away, and take care of my kid. And I think single mothers are some of the most amazing people on the planet. The fact that they're able to do all that they're able to do. So you really get to see this balancing act with her between these two worlds. And also taking care of this sweet little face every day.
Your character really has to do so much to protect his daughter, to make sure that she's able to survive. And I'm curious, that you have some physical scenes where you're fighting, battling. How did you prepare for that?
I've been preparing for that my whole life, and I'm too old for that.
No.
But I'm, yeah, I'm. That's what you do, Musicians, they take care of their instrument. They practice every day, and that's what actors do. We try to be always in shape. We try to be fit. We try to be ready for anything. And it was, as you well said, physically exhausting, emotionally draining also. And I have to say, the kids had a rough ride, and they performed so beautifully with professionalism and determination and patience. And it's always difficult to have kids playing lead roles. And Ian and Madison, made everyone's work very easy.
Now, you also said that this character, you really related to it, that it was very much like you. Could you tell us a little bit about how you connected to it?
Yes. Just like Isaiah, I was bullied in school, not only by students but also adults. And I feel like while I was in school, I was also made to think that because of my interests, well, in my case, I loved to talk. I've always been like one of the energetic animated people, and I was made to think that because I love to talk, my opinions weren't really valued.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to take that and flip it and realize that that's a great thing about you. There are so many, so many incredible moments, some terrifying and, some heartfelt. I mean, you guys really kick it off with a bang, like literally fire in that first few moments.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if you had any favorite or even more challenging moments on set.
I genuinely mean it when I say any moment that might have been challenging was challenged because it was ambitious, and those challenges are thrilling. We have the most phenomenal group of artists in front of and behind the camera who are really genuinely good people. So when you have that, then you embrace the challenges. In terms of favorite moments, my God, I have so many. What I will say is, there is an image in the first episode where something pretty dark has just happened, and Demian's character reaches down his hand, and Madison's character, his daughter, reaches up her hand, and they take each other's hand. And what I always try to remember, and what I let our writers know, is whenever you feel lost, look at that image, because that's the show. So for me, I feel like that moment in the first episode really emblemized what the show is about.
There were so many challenging moments. I mean, I would come home from work and have to meditate or take a walk or really, remind myself that I'm not in that amount of pain. But yes, it was hard to do a lot of these scenes with a lot of special effects. So a lot of what I was doing was reacting to a blank wall or a piece of tape or, what would eventually be a monkey, but it was literally air.
You gotta dig deep for those.
Yeah, and to really feel on a cellular level that everything I know to be right and real and true was not and was crumbling, and that was really hard. Going to those really, really dark places in my mind. But fun, really fun.
Yeah, so when you are in those dark moments, how do you kind of get out of that? Is there music you listen to, shows you watch, things you do to kind of get out of that mindset?
Yeah, I just do my life. I mean, I work out, I watch Real Housewives, have a glass of wine, I hang out with my friends.
You gotta let those Real Housewives in.
Let the Real Housewives in.
Yeah.
But it's also tricky to not completely let go of it, especially if I got to do it again the next day. So I try not to completely let go of it.
The hardest thing for me to film was probably where I get injected with this drug, and playing there was some physical convulsions and things like that, followed by experiencing what it felt like to be a vampire kind of superficially and temporarily, You could even look at sort of the sucking blood and then all of that as sort of the toll and the life that addiction can kind of drain on families. You know, that's how I saw it.
You're playing a vampire. You have to drink blood. You're jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
One, did you get to do any of those stunts or help participate in any of that? And two, what does blood taste like?
One, yes, I was able to do a lot of my stunts. Thankfully, I had an amazing stunt double who was also able to ensure that I was safe. The stunt director, Chris Place, was also there to make sure everything was good. But that was really fun being able to, do all of the unnatural, unrealistic things a vampire could do. And two, yes, the blood was definitely there. I like to think of it. It helped me keep me awake through some of those late nights. But yeah, the blood mixture is crystal light. But I like to say the sugar ratio is times 100 to 1. So yeah, that's definitely what kept me up during those late nights.
So two different things. There's either like a corn syrup mixture that's very kind of sticky and runs like blood in a similar way, and then there's some that is more safe to like drink and actually have, and it's like crystal light mixed with like some different things.
Maybe it didn't taste too bad.
No, it actually tastes really good. Really good, actually.
And now, something that I noticed at the end of this first episode is that you might know Eleanor. Could you tease a little bit about, how they know each other?
Yeah, so I can't say a whole lot about it. Something that I can say is they do know each other through a connection here or there, and it's not the biggest connection, but it is a connection for sure. I will say that.
Did you actually start learning tricks and perform them on set, like when you were doing them? Did you do them yourself?
Yes, I did do them myself, and then while we were going through the season, me and Madison, we learned a couple more that we could do together, and we kind of competed with magic tricks.
I grabbed a deck of cards and I was able to learn a few tricks. So on set, we were both kind of teaching each other, and eventually some of the crew workers, the camera ops, were doing magic with us. So we kind of got all of us to do it together.
He's doing all these different magic tricks. Did you guys pick up any on set? Did you work on any together?
No, I did not pick up any magic tricks, but he and Madison had tricks galore. And so I would walk in and they'd be like, Miss ANIKA, look. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, thanks. I just think they're so much fun. They really are stupendously intelligent and fun children, and I enjoy working with them. And that is, we're so lucky to have that. I really love to have them around me. They're really bright lights. And Ian came into his audition, he learned a magic trick for the audition. So, these kids are serious business.
One of your big starts was playing young Selena, which was amazing. You killed that. So what is it like going from a show like that to a show like this?
Going from a show portraying such an amazing idol to a very dark show, it was a step that I was willing to take. I wanted to push myself, see where I could go with such a dark and different role, more so, and I really liked playing that kind of horror-ish role. I liked, seeing how everything was done behind the scenes, seeing, the lengths that we would all go to make this happen, and all of the relationships you see in all the scenes, and you're going to see in season 1, are all real, and we formed those throughout the bond and all of our love.
Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!